we come now to the Philippines, and I welcome a dear friend from the Philippines, Professor Dr. Joane Serrano. I visited her in Los Banos many times. We had a lot of great meetings. She was with us in Suderburg in 2019, so she knows the asparagus as well. And she brought with us 4 presentations today. Thank you very much. Professor Joane Serrano is Associate Professor of the Faculty of Management and Development Studies at UP Open University in Los Banos. It's connected with UP in Manila. She runs there the Office of Public Affairs. She's currently the Director of the Information Office and the Multimedia Center at UP Open University. She has been with the university for 20 years and serves as an Associate Professor under the Faculty of Management and Development Studies, and also teaches courses in the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies and Faculty of Education. She was awarded with the Academic Excellence Award when she finished her PhD in Development Communication in 2013. Congratulations. She's also involved in various public service initiatives, and I think we will hear about more today. She was a member of the Technical Committee for the 3-year Human Capacity Building Program, the Ifugao Satoyama Meister Training Program. And she brought with her excellent speakers from Manila, Los Banos, and the south of Manila. And we are so happy to have you here. Joane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcus. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
am I clear?
Perfect.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to say good evening to everyone. It's currently 6 p.m. here in Los Banos in the Philippines.
You have all your students and your colleagues and professors with you, Joane?
Yes, yeah, these are all my colleagues, actually. They are just very, very young looking. So from the UP Open University, we have 4 presentations.
Great cooperation. I have to say, we have MOU with University of the Philippines, including the e-learning part in Los Banos, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Thank you, Marcus. So before we start, I just want to say congratulations to Natsuko. Finally, you're now a doctor. Hi, Natsuko. And I would like to congratulate Dave's team who presented earlier. Very nice presentation. So this evening, our presentation will be about digital trust and also about digital literacy, because these two are very closely connected. So for our first presentation, I will present my colleague. My colleague is from the University of the Philippines Los Banos. So it's another constituent unit of the UP system. So she's teaching at the College of Agriculture and Food Science. So may present Dr. Sherry Marasigan. Sherry, can you switch on your camera? And so Dr. Sherry Marasigan, we co-author this paper, and she'll be presenting critical analysis of how digital technology reshaped Ifugao Indigenous community. As Marcus has said, we have been doing a research in the northern part of the Philippines, and this is focused on the indigenous people of the Ifugao, called the Ifugaos. Yeah, Dr. Marasigan, the floor is yours.
Dr. Marasigan, before you start, I want to say mabuhay and salamat.
Yes, mabuhay also. And salamat also for having us today. Thank you. So, as mentioned by Dr. Joane Serrano, our study is entitled The Critical Analysis of How Digital Technology Reshaped the Ifugao Indigenous Community. So she has already introduced partly the study. As she has mentioned, we have been doing a research in the northern part of the Philippines, which is called the Ifugao, and we've been exposed to practically the culture of the Ifugao community. So just to give you a brief background, okay, there have been the rapid advancements in digital technology have radically altered, and transformed the rural communities, including these indigenous communities. We know for a fact that even the indigenous communities are not excluded from these advancements of digital technology, the digital world. So these new digital technologies have actually revolutionized the social structures and opened several opportunities for indigenous communities. It provide an opportunity for further progress, for promotion and all these things. And according to RISE, various studies show that digital technology, such as networking sites, are increasingly utilized, particularly by the indigenous youth, for communication purposes, such as uploading contents, particularly in the social media. If there's a group who are more exposed to this digital world, to the digital technology, these are actually the youth, because they are more exposed to what is happening around them. And interestingly, based on the results of some of our studies, the Ifugao youth appreciated the presence of contents in the social media, such as the Ifugao Rice Terraces and other digital platforms. When other people outside of their locale, outside of their community, are sharing about the Ifugao Rice Terraces, but in a way, it would take someone else for them to be able to appreciate what they really have as a community. So in 2016, there is a declaration by the UNESCO stating that access to internet is actually part of a human right. It's a basic human right for them. So because of that, because of this declaration, there have been considerable attempts to further improve the access to the internet. And because of that, it further recognizes the opportunities that is being provided to access information and knowledge, as well as the enormous potential for development because of this declaration. So, however, it's also very important to share with you the digital divide. We know for a fact that despite the increasing focus on improving internet connection or connectivity, the divide digitally is an acknowledged problem, especially in rural communities in developing countries. So actually, you could see here layers of divide. Like the divide between the developed and the developing countries in terms of access to resources and access to the internet. There have been a lot of reports of how slow the internet is in the Philippines as compared with other countries. More so, even in developing countries, even in the Philippines, there is still that divide between the rural and the urban, those who are in the periphery, which are the rural communities, and those who are in the center, which are the cities. So more so, this divide is clearly manifested in indigenous communities. The indigenous people have low computer ownership. They have lower computer literacy as compared with those in the cities. And one of the major problems, of course, is that very slow internet connectivity and low access to other digital devices, other equipment. So, however, given this situation, there have been studies on the role of digital technology and social media among indigenous peoples. In fact, last year there has been a study on the role of digital technology and social media among indigenous people. However, the focus is on the indigenous peoples as consumers or mere users of content, and of the technology created by the global north and the technologically advanced countries such as China and India. So again, this further shows the divide of those in the global north and the global south, and what are the roles undertaken by the indigenous peoples. Although there have been attempts among indigenous people to reclaim their cultural identity and showcase their cultural and natural heritage through digital platforms, say in the case of Ifugao, very few studies actually critically examined and attempted to analyze how this technology and digital platforms reshape indigenous culture. So let's try to put in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know for a fact that because of this pandemic, there was really a strong presence of people, different kinds of people in the social media, in the digital world. So it has actually accelerated the use of digital technologies, specifically the use of social networking sites. And this is also true in an indigenous community such as the Ifugao. So because of the restrictions, of course, in mobility, the livelihood, the social interactions, as well as the traditional lifestyles and practices of indigenous people, which are actually were considered as a source of their resiliency, has also been threatened. So the Ifugaos resorted to social media in their social interactions and in keeping up with news about their community. So we know that they cannot really mingle, they cannot really meet with other members of the community. So they have resorted to the social media in terms of how they would be interacting with one another. So this is just a picture of one municipality, one village in Ifugao. So you could see there, the village down, and they are surrounded by the Ifugao rice terraces. As I mentioned, it's really part of their culture. The rice terraces is really part of their culture and natural heritage. So what are the objectives of this study? This paper aimed to critically examine how the Western influenced digitalization has reshaped and influenced the Ifugao culture. Specifically, it aims to analyze the use of digital media, specifically the social networking sites, in reshaping and influencing the Ifugao culture and society, and to examine how the Ifugaos preserve their cultural and natural heritage through digital platforms. So with methodology, what we did was we made use of archival analysis of social media posts from January this year until September. So practically it covered 3 quarters by looking at the following Facebook pages: the COVID-19 updates of the province of Ifugao, the Office of the Provincial Governor of Ifugao, the Ifugao State University, the Ifugao Youth Association, and the International Innovation Center for Indigenous Studies. So these 5 Facebook pages. So we looked at the social media posts. These posts from the social media pages served as naturally occurring data that were thematically analyzed through the study. And some digital conservation platforms were also examined to know how the Ifugaos established and reclaimed their cultural identity. So let me just share with you the highlights of the results of our study. So let me just share also the current status of the Ifugao community. Based on some of the researches in the literature that we have gathered, in recent years, one of the concerns of Ifugao is the dwindling ubo. They call it ubo in their native language, or bayanihan in Filipino, but translated in English, it's the community spirit among the group. Another concern is that the Ifugao youth tend to take for granted the natural heritage that they have in their locality. This was seen in the study of Dr. Serrano. As I mentioned earlier, it would take another group of people, for them to be able to appreciate what they have. They do appreciate what they have if other people would really give emphasis on particularly on the Ifugao rice terraces. Third, the young generation Ifugao have no interest to engage in Ifugao farming activities, and this was evident in one of the interviews that we have done. The youth would rather go outside of Ifugao rather than continue the farming activities. So what is left are the Ifugao elders. They are the ones who still do the farming activities. So how did the use of digital media and social networking sites reshape and influence the Ifugao culture and society? Now let's try to look at these things within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the social media pages that we've browsed over are within this year. First theme that emerged is the continued government support. The Facebook pages of the local government unit, they post support services that they provide to the Ifugaos, particularly in announcing restrictions on social gatherings because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, however, with these announcements on the restrictions of social gatherings, this has really affected the culture, the tradition of the Ifugaos, because they are known for festivals. They are known for having ceremonies and rituals in different stages of their lives. These announcements have affected particularly one activity. They call it the Boat. It's a local term for not really a celebration of the dead, but they have an activity during the first day after the death of a person. They would really gather together. But because of these announcements that they see in the social media pages, of course, they could not do that anymore. Another, the postings that we have seen are, of course, on the cases of vaccination, which is also very common in other areas of the country, not only in rural communities. However, another is that there are reminders on hand washing, social distancing, and wearing of masks. This activity, this announcement on wearing of masks, well, of course, we know the importance of why it's needed, But this had also an implication in one of the practices that Ifugaos do. Part of the everyday life of the Ifugao, not only the elders, but even the youth, they are engaged in chewing. They call it moma in their area, but it's a betel nut, the chewing of betel nut. So what they do, they chew it and then they spit the juice, and it's part of their everyday life. But how can they do that when they are restricted to remove the masks from their faces? And another thing is that when they do a chewing of betel nut, they do it with other people, because it's a way of like communicating with them, and they share their everyday lives with them. But with, of course, the pandemic, as posted in the social media, these activities have been also restricted. Another theme that emerges is that there is still an enhanced community connection. The Ifugaos have a strong sense of community. As a rural community, in rural sociology, we have this, well, it's a German term, it's called Gemeinschaft, wherein there is a strong, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but it's that strong sense of community, among rural communities. And Ifugaos, even though there have been observations, as I had mentioned earlier, that there is a decrease in the community spirit, still the Ifugaos have that strong sense of community, and they still value their community. And it is evident in some of the activities that were initiated by the state university in partnership with the local government, with a non-government organization, wherein they highlighted capacity building, wherein different aspects of indigenous knowledge systems, such as weaving and other indigenous skills and practices were still pursued. No? So there is still that effort to bond, to have that strong sense of community, even despite the pandemic. And then the third theme is that there is still that cultural connection. Ifugaos have a strong connection to their cultural heritage. No? The Ifugao cultural practices mostly revolve and are closely linked with Ifugao rice terraces. Actually, Ifugao rice terraces is their culture. It's part of their lives. No? So they still have that strong connection. So in the postings in the social media, the Ifugao sought ways, no, to still practice the agricultural rituals. No? Like, for example, this ahibakle ritual. No? It's the end of the season agricultural activity. They do that, no, every cycle of their agricultural activity, their farming. They still do planting of indigenous trees, no, for conservation of their native species and for their traditional houses. They still practice this, but with limited attendees. So how do they do this? Of course, there's still that limited limited group of people who attend, but they post their activity in the social media so that the other members of the community would still feel that they are part of that ritual. So the ritual still persisted through the digital media despite the pandemic. So also the Ifugao cultural and natural heritage through digital platforms are highlighted through the establishment of various institutions or centers, no, such as the Ifugao Rice Terraces, a globally important agricultural heritage system research and development center by the Ifugao State University, and the International Innovation Center for Indigenous Studies, again by the Ifugao State University. These centers were established through collaboration with other partner universities in Taiwan, in Japan, and also with the University of the Philippines, where we are part of. So as a conclusion, the Ifugaos were able to preserve their cultural and natural heritage through digital platforms. Well, with the increased engagement in the use of social media, the indigenous communities, the Ifugao indigenous communities, remain connected with one another. With the social media, the social structure or that patterns of relationship in the community was revived, no, but was also reshaped, no. It was not the same as it was in the past, but that sense of community, in the sense that the community, the sense of community no longer resides in the planting and harvesting together, but it's seen on how the community still look after each other's welfare, particularly in the context of the pandemic. So definitely the digital world, no, has affected the lives of people, but that kind of culture, that kind of sense of belonging and community in the Ifugao remained with them. So that's the end of our presentation, and these are the references that we used. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is really great. Joanne, I'm very happy as always. Thank you very much for this presentation.
Yeah, so we really wanted to show you a different aspect of how digital technology and digital literacy influence an indigenous culture. That's why we wanted to present it here. And in fact, our next project will be about digital trust. We just wanted to show everyone that there is really, that even in an indigenous community like the Ifugaos, the use of digital technology is really very prevalent nowadays. And I think we'll be planning soon on study on digital trust, and hopefully you'll be able to present this, I don't know, hybrid or face-to-face next year in Ostfalia.
Yes, please. Here
Yes.
the speaker, Jenine, Bagos, and Margaret Igcasan. Let me just briefly introduce Dr. Jenine Bagos. She's an anti-sexual harassment staff of the Office of Gender Concerns at UP Open University, and also a program staff research assistant for the Diploma Master of Social Work and for the Diploma in Women and Development Programs at University of the Philippines Open University in Los Banos. She has a BS Human Ecology. She's a Human Ecology graduate from the University of the Philippines in Los Banos. And thank you very much for doing this great work. It's really a pleasure to have you with us. Also with us, Dr. Margaret Igcasan, and I say my buhay if I do something wrong with the spelling. I'm still learning. And Margaret Igcasan is a Filipino project staff of the Office of Gender Concerns at the University of the Philippines Open University. She has served as a staff and more years, and has immersed herself in projects, activities, research, and communication campaigns that involve gender and development and anti-sexual harassment. She is also often invited to resource persons for talks and seminars regarding writing, social media, marketing research, and education media. To both of you, a warm welcome. This is very important work. I don't know how the situation is in the Philippines with sexual harassment. We have in Germany lots of discussions about that, even if I think it's not such a big problem as in other parts of the world. I don't want to talk it down, but in some parts of the world, it's a really serious problem. And I'm really thankful for you for all the work, and we're listening to your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Marcos. So good day, everyone. I am Jenine Bagos from the University of the Philippines Open University, and I am with my co-researcher, Ms. Margaret Igcasan, and we'll be presenting our study titled Digital Trust in Providing Gender and Anti-Sexual Harassment Support, the Case in an Online University. So to start, for the introduction, in the past year or so, responses to the pandemic have accelerated the use of digital technologies as most jobs have become entirely remote. Schools have converted to online learning, and automation has been integrated in the operations of various industries. Also, many countries have established digital arrangements for contact tracing, COVID-19 testing, government relief distribution, and vaccination rollouts. This digital growth has established the tremendous capacity for technology to add value to our society, but it has also revealed how fragile these tools and people's trust in those tools can be. And according to Subramainam et al. 2021, COVID-19 is a driver of digital transformation, and one of the negative effects of it is data security and technology issues. And to define digital trust, it is the confidence users have in the ability of people, technology, and processes to create a secure digital world. So digital trust is given to companies or institutions who have shown their users that they can provide safety, privacy, security, reliability, and data ethics with their online programs or devices. And UPOU, as the pioneer in online learning in the country and the region, recognizes the importance of providing support services that puts emphasis on gender considerations. In 2020, the Office of Gender Concerns launched the following. First is the Fresh Desk account, online reporting portal for gender-based violence, and last, opening the Facebook account for reports. And the concerning services provided are usually connected with anonymity and sensitivity, since the people who are in need of support and or information are society's marginalized, discriminated, and abused sectors. And let's now proceed with the research objectives. The study sought to first determine the strategies employed by UPOU in ensuring digital trust. Second, examine how UPOU ensures digital trust in providing gender and anti-sexual harassment support. And lastly, enumerate the improvements UPOU should adapt into their gender and anti-sexual harassment support. Okay, moving on to the review of literature. According to Philippine Trust Index or PTI, Filipinos' trust level to business last 2013 has remained stable from its previous level in 2012. The PTI results showed that 13% of the total general public respondents and 10% of the total informed public respondents said that they have trusted business institutions, particularly the sectors of health services, water, information technology, telecommunications, and tourism. And in terms of media, PTI also revealed that Filipinos trust social media more than they trust traditional media. And as a result, people experience unwanted exposure to pornography. And according to studies, exposure to internet pornography can have negative effects on adolescents. And another negative impact of information and communications technology is phishing scams. In 2019, the number of phishing cybercrime incidents in the Philippines was highest for those within the National Capital Region, amounting to approximately 58.2 thousand victims. Phishing cyber attacks also occurred more in Region 3 and Region 4A. And in the context of digital trust in education, online learning continues to gain widespread attention and thrive as a legitimate alternative to classroom instruction. Educational institutions and online instructors face the challenge of building and sustaining students' trust in online learning environments. Okay, for the methodology, we used document analysis and comparative analysis using Harvard Business Review's four dimension of digital trust as a framework guide. So the 4 dimensions are: first, behavior. How do users actually respond to friction in their digital experiences and environment? Second is attitude. How do users feel about the digital trust environment? Third is the digital environment. What are the guarantor mechanisms for building trust in the digital economy? And how robust are they? And lastly, digital user experience. How do users experience the digital trust environment? So now I'm giving the floor to Ms. Margaret Igcasan to discuss the results, the conclusion, and the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jenine. So I am Margaret Igcasan. So I will be presenting first our results and discussion. So what we've done is, next please, Jenine. Thank you very much. Okay, so first, we will be going ahead to discuss the behavior part of the framework. So for to reiterate, behavior is that when we question on how do users actually respond to friction in their digital experiences and environment. When we say friction, these are the components used for digital trust. One of the a few of the most common types that you may have encountered already are security codes or dual authentication methods when you're logging in, for example, on your Google Mail account or other social media accounts. So for this one, the UPOU Office of Gender Concerns, following the protocol of the UP Anti-Sexual Harassment Code, presents a data privacy form to be filled out. Once the case reporter agrees to formally file a report to the office. So this is in according when a certain individual, either from UPOU or not, they will come to the office or they will email us or they will message our Facebook page and they will ask if they can file a report. So from there, we can already see the the case reporter's name if they did use their real accounts, but basically we will be seeing their username. So from there we will preview them on what the steps are on. So that's where we present the data privacy form to ensure them that all of the information that they will be sharing will be kept confidential and safe through the office. Next, please. This is also under behavior. So UPOU's constituents can also access information on gender-based violence, or GBV, and J.A.C, so that is sexual orientation, gender identity, anonymously through the OGC's Fresh Desk FAQs page. So we are currently developing a frequently asked questions page. It does not only it also previews the office's services. So like, for example, our communication campaigns or what the office can do for them, but they can also access information regarding sexual orientations, gender development, gender identity. And this is important for us because when something is easily accessible to them, they won't have to personally go to the office or personally email us. So their information will be shown, so they don't have to do that. They can just go through the page and search if they want to know the basics of, for example, of gender sensitivity or gender mainstreaming. Because here in the Philippines, unfortunately, gender is still a bit a sensitive topic, or a bit of a maybe taboo. So yeah, this is important for them. So when we have something that is presented publicly, so they can access that anonymously anytime. So next, please. So for the second part of the framework, which is attitude, so this is when we ask, how do users feel about the digital trust environment? So up to date, UPOU's constituents have not had any cases where they felt uncomfortable contacting us using their personal email addresses or social media accounts. So as I have shared before, we can already see their names, so they're very comfortable reaching out, because when they access our Facebook page and our website and our Fresh Desk account, we already assure them in the print or in the page that any information that we will receive or that they will share will already be kept confidential. Next, please. So for the third part, digital environment, what are the guarantor mechanisms for building trust in the digital economy, and how robust are they? So for this one, so for the digital environment that we have provided, UPOU OGC, again, following the protocol of the UP Ash Code. Ayun, sorry. As I have said before, we already have a data privacy form intact, and when we are talking with a case reporter, we always assure them every time that they will be sharing confidential information, or every time that we will ask for it, we always say that all information will be used for filing the case. We will not be sharing it outside the office and to uncredible people. So yeah. Next, please. For the again, under digital environment, so UPOU OGC publicly posts their J.A.C and GB gender-based violation information, ensuring that no information is required from its constituents to access essential resource materials. So we for people who are still confused with their gender identities and they want to know more about J.A.C or anything related to anti-sexual harassment, they can already access it easily from our end. Next, please. For the last one, it is the digital user experience. So how do users experience the digital trust environment? So for now, all we have is the digital trust is only ensured through the data privacy form that they will be filling out. And this is only when the case reporter is sure that they want to pursue with filing the case that they will be reporting on, like formally and it will go through all of the steps, because we've had some experiences where they have already shared all of the happenings in the case, but they decided not to opt to pursue with the case filed, but still we have ensured them that all of the information that they have shared with us will be kept confidential. Next, please. So for the conclusion, the UPOU-OGC has assured a general form of data privacy. This is following the UP Ash Code protocol. So for the whole time that the university has offered gender and development and anti-sexual harassment services, it has yet to encounter a case where digital trust has been compromised. However, the university has proactively made steps and systems to ensure that personal and confidential information is kept private and secure. It has also ensured that J.A.C resources that are sometimes still considered as taboo and or controversial is readily available and easily accessible to all. Next, please. So with that, for our recommendations, since we have already thought of how we can provide, especially our constituents, digital trust, especially through the cases that we've handled and the topics that gender and development and anti-sexual harassment and gender-based violence are still very sensitive. So we've assured to them always verbally that we will keep everything confidential and through the proper forms. So it is still essential for us to further research through group discussions and interviews with UPOU's constituents so that we can have firsthand information regarding their digital trust experience. So for once we have that information from our constituents and from our stakeholders, so we can further analyze if we are missing something or if we need to improve on something on providing our services with digital trust. Thank you very much. So that would be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you. Joanne, it's really a pleasure. Great presentations.
All right. So for our next presentation, which is entitled Decolonizing Digital Trust Framework, we have, again, Dr. Sherry Marasigan. She was the first presenter. And our co-author here is Ms. Janelle Ann C. Belegal. Ms. Janelle Ann Belegal is a project staff under the Emerging Interdisciplinary Research Grant of the University of the Philippines. And she is involved in conducting studies on socio-ecological production landscape. So she's also involved in the next research that we will be presenting later. So that's it. That's the three authors for this presentation. So let me proceed with this. So the title is Decolonizing Digital Trust Framework Towards Building an Inclusive, Sustainable, and Digital Trustworthy Filipino Society. Again, authors are myself, Dr. Marasigan, and Ms. Janelle Ann Belegal. Okay, so this study actually builds on our previous research in 2020, which is with Dr. Marcus Lohner and Team on Digital Trust Framework, wherein we conducted a global research on digital trust. This was actually comprehensively discussed by Dave's team. But for our study last year, we focused on the case of the Philippines. So the focus of that study was on the level of trust of Filipinos when it comes to digital technology. And we investigated 472 Filipinos and collected data on the following: digital platforms available and used in the workplace, means of communication in the workplace, sought out features of digital technologies, level of trust with digital technologies in the workplace, and level of trust with people in the workplace, such as management, IT and data support, and external entities. Overall, the study found that Filipinos in the workplace mostly use emails and social media for digital communication. ethics and control of data access and use, personal data protection and accuracy of data as top priorities for trusting digital technologies. And laptops are the most trusted devices. Perhaps this is due to it's readily available and because it's portable. And in terms of security systems, surveillance ID systems are the most trusted digital technologies, and top management as the most trusted management level. Next slide, please. Now, it is undeniable now more than ever that we are living in a digital age and society. The COVID-19 pandemic served as catalyst for digital technology adoption, and we have seen this in various sectors, from tourism, health, to business, and now even the academe. However, this also means focusing more on user privacy, protection, and trust. Users of any tool or platform should know how and when to use it, and as well as what and how their data are collected and used in these digital spaces and platforms. And during our review of literature, another important aspect, but is often neglected in the study of digital trust, is the notion of decolonization. As you review the literature on digital trust, the existing drivers and frameworks on digital trust are dominantly centralized on Western perspectives and settings. Western-centric worldviews continue to dominate the use of technology, the format of digital content, the language used, the structure of preserving digital artifacts, and the nature of technology-mediated interaction, and how these have become the accepted norm and taken for granted day-to-day reality. Now, a framework specific to the Global South context, particularly developing countries such as the Philippines, with limited and or lagging digital access and availability, is yet to be established. Therefore, this study aims to decolonize digital trust frameworks and to fill the gap in literature, specifically in the context of the Philippines. Next slide. Now, although we are now in the 21st century, colonization, or the process of establishing foreign control by powerful countries over relatively economically weaker countries, still exist. And colonization has taken on many different forms, including in and through technology. Now, let us define decolonization here as the process of deconstructing colonial ideologies of the superiority and privilege of Western thought and approaches. On the one hand, decolonization involves dismantling structures that perpetuate the status quo and addressing unbalanced power dynamics. Now, for this study, next slide. Next slide, Janelle. The objectives of the study are the following. We determine components of digital trust frameworks. We reviewed existing literature on digital trust frameworks globally in terms of global literature. And then we reviewed existing literature on digital trust in the Philippine context. And based on this review of literature, we tried to develop a digital trust frameworks in the context of the Philippine setting. Now, this is a highly qualitative research. We reviewed published literature on digital trust from online databases, citation snowballing to include other peer-reviewed and gray literature published by Filipino authors, and thematic analysis is basis for the digital trust framework in the Philippine setting. Now, for the results of our study, we reviewed existing literature on digital trust frameworks and determined common components. And we have found out, based on an analysis, that the frameworks share common components such as safety, security, reliability, privacy, data ethics, credibility, and transparency. Now, these are the frameworks that we reviewed. So we have the KPMG's 2015 Digital Trust Model for Organizations, and these are the various components: reliability, credibility, transparency, security, and integrity. And of course, we have Marshall and Lohner's 2019 Digital Trust Framework in the Workplace. And this has been comprehensively discussed in the previous presentation, but the focus here is on the triangle of trust, including people, technology, and process. And then we have Brewer and colleagues 2021 Trust Framework for Digital Food System, which include common infrastructure and collaboration in interface, information channels, and the three major components are interoperability, governance, and operations. And of course, Wang's and colleagues 2019 Digital Trust Framework in the Internet of Things. So this is the framework that they developed, which focus on trust evaluation and trust prediction. And then we also have, we also reviewed a digital trust framework developed by the International Data Corporation, wherein the elements of trust include risk, security, compliance, ethics and social responsibility, privacy, and at the upper pyramid is the trust. And then we also have CIO's take on digital trust. This is actually a industry-led framework by Accenture, which focus on the 4 keys to digital trust, which is on security, accountability, privacy or data control, and benefit and value. And then we also have Ian and Holtman's trust frameworks in 27 on the left, and on the right, the presented figure is not limited to digital trust in Western settings. We wanted to show a rather relevant figure where Chuck Ravorty and colleagues summarized the 4 key dimensions or categories of digital trust, which are attitudes, behavior, environment, and experience, which is also charted across 42 countries. And then we also have digital trust by Wang and colleagues framework in the Internet of Things. The components are security, comprehensiveness, usability, functionality, and robustness. And then now in the digital trust in the Philippines, digital trust research in the Philippines have mostly analyzed e-government services as cited by Chen et al. And Capistrano 2020, and also on mobile banking by Chu et al. Both in 2016 and 2017, and other e-services by Lim, Fernandez, and Capistrano again in 2021. Now, the common observation among these studies are the apprehensions and reluctance of using digital tools in services prior to actual usage and favorable perceptions after usage. These studies could also be clustered as Philippine digital trust in e-commerce. E-commerce is an industry progressing and expanding in the country, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, where employment rates have dropped and prices of basic needs are increasing. And the Filipinos turn to e-commerce, such as online selling, online purchasing, online delivery, online institutions, and other services to make additional income, as well as to avoid exposure from COVID-19, and of course, to stay at home during the pandemic. Now, in general, it can be assumed, if you look at literature on trust, Filipinos are generally trusting of technological advancements. However, when presented with new tools and platforms, knowledge and preparations are needed. And digital trust among Filipinos may have also been affected by access, availability of gadgets and infrastructures, digital literacy, information literacy, and media literacy. And connected to digital trust is a general concern on security and privacy, wherein common incidents in Philippine digital spaces are hackings, scams, and phishing schemes. Now, let me turn over the next part of the presentation to Ms. Janelle Ann Belegal. Go ahead, Janelle.
Thank you, Dr. Joane Serrano. So good day to everyone participating in this Congress. On to the discussion of our proposed digital trust framework in the Philippine setting. For an inclusive, sustainable, and digital trustworthy Filipino society, the proposed digital trust framework lifts Marshall and Lohner's trust triangle between people, technology, process relationships from their digital trust framework in the workplace. In the proposed framework, trust is influenced by 7 factors or components, namely social influence, quality and value, digital architecture, access and availability, data access and use, security and privacy, and resilience and sustainability. These factors were the commonly found components discussed in trust and technology acceptance literature by Filipino authors and/or Philippine settings, except for resilience and sustainability as a new component to the framework. We further contextualize these factors or components into which specific component of the trust triangle each factor directly affects or relates to. An example would be social influence to people, quality and value to people and technology, digital architecture to technology, and so on. And the framework further characterizes 6 of the 7 factors with relevant digital trust attributes, namely performance expectancy, credibility, reliability, facilitating conditions, integrity, and transparency. We will discuss this framework more thoroughly in the next few slides. So central to our proposed digital trust framework is the trust triangle, which is again lifted from Marshall and Lohner's study or digital trust framework in the workplace, which shows the interrelationship between people, technology, and process resulting in digital trust. And as mentioned earlier, the framework has 7 components, with resilience and sustainability as the overseeing factor, while the rest of the 6 components are the most relevant factors in the Philippine setting and are the common factors described in digital trust modeling. For the first factor or component is social influence. It is defined as the user's perceptions regarding the attitudes towards using the technology of other people important to them. The addition of this component is due to its relevance with Filipino values and cultures of family and kinship. Filipinos trust digital technologies because it has been shared or it has been referred to them by family members, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, etc. Whereas in the Philippines, trust and confidentiality is built within social networks. It is further attributed by performance expectancy, which is defined as the individual's belief that the technology helps attain performance gains in more convenient and productive ways. Next is quality and value. Value is defined as the technology augmented capabilities to address customer needs, while value is the additional equity associated with and gained from the digital technology or service. This component is further attributed by credibility, which is the ability of the organization or the digital technology to fulfill product or service commitments. This is a critical component in the Philippine Digital Trust Framework, especially in terms of information quality, considering the prevalence of mis- and disinformation in Philippine digital landscapes, especially during the pandemic, where digital use among Filipinos have increased, namely in online classes, e-commerce, and so on. Third is digital architecture, which is the technological backbone of the digital technology or service, and is the design of underlying infrastructure, platform, and capabilities. It is further attributed by reliability or the ability of the digital technology to meet consumer demands. Next is access and availability. Access is the ability to draw upon the means with which to use digital technologies, or is the full access to participate in society digitally, while availability is the ability and freedom to access information or resources. We also define this component as the relevance of language and content used, as both are critical factors due to the big disparity that exists in the language and contents most used on the web and in the world. These are further attributed by facilitating conditions, which measure the degree of the user's belief towards the support of organizational and technical infrastructures in using the technology. This component also relates to inclusivity, a central concept in this study, which we describe as not just the access and accessibility to digital technologies, but also includes participating in the social and economic benefits and outputs, and in opportunities to shape how technologies impact our lives. The benefits accruing from technology are exponential, and closing the digital divide will become increasingly difficult. We risk embedding structural inequality into our social and economic systems, condemning many to intergenerational exclusion, hence the importance of this particular component in our framework. Fifth is data access and use, or data ethics. It is defined as the organization's or the digital technology's ethical access and use of consumer data, and must be in compliance with national and or international standards and regulations for data protection. It is also a critical or important factor or component considering the increasing usage of digital tools and platforms by Filipinos. This is further attributed by transparency, which is the organization's or the technology's visibility over how consumer data is consumed or used. Sixth, and quite different from the previous component, is security and privacy, which is defined as the organization's understanding of security risks and threats that impact the digital technology or service, where they must take proactive and positive action to address cyber threats and risks. This is further attributed by integrity, or the organization's ability to demonstrate that they act in the best interest of consumers. Last is resilience and sustainability, which we will discuss in the context of human-environment harmony. This will be our own additional component based on the gaps we saw from the literature, since this was not a common factor among the frameworks we analyzed in both Western and Philippine contexts. This is also our overseeing factor, as mentioned earlier, which basically covers the whole framework to ensure that it is grounded on resilience and sustainability. We also consider this component based on the Philippine context, wherein we are highly vulnerable to environmental issues and disasters, which is in connection with the availability of digital services such as the internet, electricity infrastructure, cellular services, and similar infrastructures when disasters strike. So of course, when storms or earthquakes or any natural calamities strike any region of the Philippines, of course, this would affect physical infrastructures that affect the availability of these services to the Filipino people. This is also in connection with how the country should further develop its digital landscape while considering its effects on natural landscapes or on the environment, while considering equitable and inclusive access and availability to rural and semi-urban areas, and while considering the advancements in global digital technologies such as 5G and AR. As a conclusion, we based the proposed framework for Philippine Digital Trust on existing literature and Philippine context with 7 components. This study contributes to the literature of digital trust in the country, where it is yet to move from technology acceptance to digital trust. The results of this study can be utilized in educational or learning community settings and can be further contextualized into specific cultures and groups, such as Indigenous peoples in the Philippines, due to the varying needs and context of these communities within the Philippine archipelago. With Dr. Joane Serrano and Dr. Marasigan, we thank the organizers of this Congress for giving us the opportunity to present this study. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. And here is our list of references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Wonderful presentations. And I hope we can suggest your presentations on digital trust to the Foresight Journal. Professor Dr. Joane Serrano will talk later and present the journal. And I think that would be a perfect article to publish with us.